Yeah, no, I'm interested to hear about all the material that didn't make it into the Tajikistan documentary. Just to follow what Geoff was saying, it is extraordinary that it's really quite recent that the New York Times was a print publication. I mean, it was really only a few years ago that when you spoke about the New York Times, you were actually speaking about the newspaper. And I am curious to know, and maybe each of you could just talk briefly about this. How have your lives as journalists at the New York Times changed as the company is clearly becoming a media company? It is no longer a newspaper company.
Should I take that one?
Yeah, you can.
Yes. So I've had the privilege of being able to tell stories in 3 mediums, I guess now. So print, which is my home, my motherland, let's say, audio through the podcast I did for Caliphate and others, and now the visual medium. And what I remind myself is, because of course it's sort of these are very different, mediums, but the way that you do journalism doesn't change. The way that you have to verify information, the type of ethical relationships that you build with sources, the way that you interact with officials in a way that speaks to the integrity of your newspaper, none of that changes. You're still doing it the same way. And in the end, the real tools of investigative journalism, that is still the mechanism through which you get the story, regardless of which medium it goes into. What I am more aware of is, for example, on Breonna Taylor, this is the young African-American woman who was killed in a police shooting in her own home here in Kentucky, which is where I am now. We told that in all 3. We had a print story, we had a 2-part audio podcast, and we also had a video that Geoff was involved with editing. And so for the print story, it's a standard reconstruction of both her life, the actions of the police, what went wrong that night, the missteps, etc. That was the classical presentation. But I knew right away that there was going to be something for our audio colleagues to work with, because there was so much rich audio. There were the 911 calls. So I've learned to think sort of other raw material rather than just the way I would normally shape a story. There were 911 calls from Breonna's boyfriend who watched her die, next to him, and who was calling the operator, sobbing on the phone, asking for help. There's the 911 calls from the neighbors who have no idea what's going on. There's then audio of the main police officer who opens fire and who was shot first by Breonna Taylor's boyfriend. And he gives a more than hour-long deposition, really, to the police investigative unit, and we had that audio. And then there are jailhouse phone calls. Anyway, there was an enormous amount of rich material for the ear. That was quite different in a way than what I had mined in the print story. So that created the space for that. And then there's video. And if you were just to read on the page Tamika Palmer's quotes, this is the mother of the young woman, the quotes don't look like much. It's when you hear the enormous pain in her voice. There's information I've learned that is encoded in different ways, in just the sound of somebody's voice, or in the visual of somebody speaking, where you understand, from the expression, from the facial movements, from the movements of her hands, you understand something more about that person's experience. And so we were able to do it in all 3 formats.